And good afternoon to all the influencers, both those that are watching and here live with us. There are quite a few, and also those that watch the replay, which you're always welcome to do. And it is always a pleasure to see the numbers grow as you watch the replay in all of these training sessions. Today is going to be very different in many ways. We're going to be talking about nonprofits and how you might benefit them while they also, in turn, reciprocally will benefit you just in the process of joining and being a part of them. Very special treat today to kind of bring us into a feeling of what that's all about and what it means to not only a community, but a chamber of commerce. We have Barbara Martinez, which is the executive director of the Goshen, New York Chamber of Commerce. Barbara has a tremendous following in her particular chamber, but also within her entire community. She's active on Facebook constantly, does a radio program every Friday. But just about an hour and a half ago, I had something flash up on my screen that said, Barbara is live, and I switched over and she was in a doctor's office talking to a doctor about actually an upcoming event, a wellness event there in Goshen. So she never stops. She even has a little plug that says, guess where Barbara is in I guess, Hudson Valley, is it? Or whatever county it is there. But nobody ever knows. She's active, wonderful. She's works with us on a Chamber Leaders Mastermind, which some of you know about. She is the host of that and does a wonderful job in that area. But rather than me trying to praise her too much, I'm going to ask Barbara to tell us a little bit about how she feels about the nonprofits herself in being involved, and how they work into the Chamber of Commerce, how important they are to being parts of the Chamber of Commerce. So here's Barbara Martinez. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining this training today. And I am honored to have been asked by Christopher Knight to jump in really quick as I am running through the fields and talk a little bit about not-for-profit organizations and how they support my local Chamber of Commerce. So our Chamber of Commerce is in Goshen, New York, and we have to remember that we are supposed to be a chamber for the community, not only just the local businesses. And one of the things that I find very important is supporting our not-for-profits, because they're the ones that are boots to the ground. They're the ones that are supporting the community and making it possible for the community to be healthy. So if you have a healthy not-for-profit organization, you have a healthy community. In a healthy community, you have healthy businesses. And if you have the healthy businesses, then you have successful chambers of commerce. So it's almost kind of like an ecosystem within a chamber when you support small businesses and not-for-profits. So my chamber is, and like most chambers, I think that most of the membership is made up of small businesses. I would say about 75% of the membership is made up by local small businesses. And then there's a big portion of that is made up by not-for-profit organizations. I recognize that we as businesses are busy running our business. So who takes on the job of supporting the community? Those are your local not-for-profits. They're the ones that are out there supporting in various different forms of services that then makes it possible for small businesses to be a part of by sponsoring or supporting or putting their name or their brand, attaching it to a not-for-profit organization. So for me as a chamber, I recognize really early on that I wanted to give the not-for-profits a voice through the local businesses, through the chamber, and we make it very easy for them to join at a very affordable price so that they can afford it. Because when you think about it, they don't make a lot of money. They have a lot of overhead when it comes to supporting the community. And so we keep their membership fee very low. We also, one of the things that I started to do with my chamber is we put out blasts to all of our memberships. So I don't believe in giving away the lists of our members to anyone. But what I do is I couldn't possibly support every single not-for-profit when they ask for donations. So I instituted a new blast that goes out every Wednesday. It's got a value of about $1,000. I know that other chambers, that's what they charge for these e-blasts. We do it for free. We set up a blast that goes out to our membership. It's attached to our Facebook and our Instagram, and it highlights one not-for-profit organization. It shines a light on them. So we do that every single week. We try to highlight a different not-for-profit. As a result, what's happening is a lot of not-for-profits are joining the chamber. So I'm not soliciting them. They're actually coming to me because they're seeing the value of what a chamber can do to help support these not-for-profits. And people say, well, you're not charging them to do anything. You're really giving a lot away to these not-for-profits. But if we really look at the way that they operate, these not-for-profits, like I mentioned earlier, are supporting the local community. And people that are involved in these local not-for-profits, they see and they are aware of who's attached themselves in supporting these not-for-profits. It becomes kind of an awareness that the community, whenever they see the Goshen Chamber of Commerce shows up at a not-for-profit event, it makes that connection. It clicks. And a lot of these people are the ones that have these local businesses in the community. So it all kind of ties in together. And I think for someone that has depended a lot in many different ways on what not-for-profit organizations does, this is our way of giving back to the community through supporting the not-for-profits. And that's why I feel that when a chamber attaches themselves to different not-for-profit organizations, really all you're giving is time. And they appreciate that, and local businesses support that, and in turn support your chamber. It just continues to go on and on and on, and I really like the way that sounds.
All right, very good, Barbara. That's it also tells us that there is no real disconnect anywhere. That it is really all part of the same community effort that a chamber strives for. That's what I'm understanding you're saying there.
Absolutely. And so I make it a point that I visit these not-for-profits. I set up teamwork building efforts with not-for-profits, but I also connect businesses that are members to, when a bank reaches out to me and says, hey, we're looking to do a day of giving, or we're trying to do a community event, I think to myself, you really should do it with a not-for-profit organization. And you just continue to make that connection. It's overall just good and really helps with the health of the community in which you serve.
Now, today we're going to have certainly marketing people talking to them about becoming a part of a nonprofit in order to add value to the nonprofit. Because we as marketing people can do a lot for a nonprofit that will help them in their upcoming events, maybe on their website, maybe on their Facebook pages, with graphic arts, all types of things that a nonprofit needs, an agency can provide. Now, how would you, just briefly, how would you suggest that the marketing person get involved with a nonprofit?
I could tell you what I do personally with a not-for-profit organization. If I have a good website designer and I notice that this not-for-profit organization is struggling, your website is your front door. So I will make that connection with a website designer and the not-for-profit organization to see if there's a way that they can support each other. Remember, when you have when you have in your credentials that you as a business supported a local not-for-profit, that really shows the community how connected you are to that community. So it really works both ways. In terms of marketing, they can use help in many different ways. And when you think about it, the effort that you put into maybe potentially helping them with their website, maybe sharing something so simple as a flyer onto your Facebook, or maybe even helping them design a flyer. Think about how much time does it really take to do that. And if you do that every once in a while, just because it feels good to do it and you believe in the mission and the cause, it pays so much more back to you and your business. It brings, I think that no matter what you do for that not-for-profit, the value truly comes greater to you as a business. I think it's tenfold. It's almost kind of like a karma paying you back. So I think we all are professionals in our own way, and we know how to do things. We have our niche. I think if you're a business and you're looking for a way to bring credibility and bring attention and awareness to your business, first step to me is join a chamber and then start supporting local not-for-profits.
Okay, well, I like the plug on join a chamber, because that definitely is very necessary to even get started. Good
Well,
job,
we can tell you where all the not-for-profits are.
They're all there, aren't they, basically?
Yeah.
So excellent intro for this, Barbara. Thank you so much for taking the time. Because I know
everybody.
you're buzzing everywhere. And setting up a studio in a bookstore is a clever thing to do. You did a good job there.
I want to give you all another view of the Montgomery Book Exchange in the village of Montgomery. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Barbara. Great job.
Hi, everybody.
See you, Barbara. Thanks again. Bye-bye. All right, folks. So, as you can see, there is a lot more to this than you might think. There are things that you can do with a nonprofit that will enhance your business, build your credibility, build your visibility, and build many other things. Let's see if we can get, I'll get Barbara's mic off here just for a second while she's getting all shut up, or shut down, excuse me. So I'd like to, I know many of you probably here have been part of nonprofits, and we're going to get into some of your experiences as we go through, because this is something that, because it is personal to me, as I've been part of a number of nonprofits, I know that some of you have had some experiences, and I want to get those as we move through our chat today and training today. So let me, first of all, let me share my screen, and we'll start chatting a little bit about what's going on here. Going here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, now, the obvious thing that Barbara said is that the not-for-profit, nonprofit, or charity, you know, there are all kinds of terms you might use. They are vitally important to any community. They serve so many purposes. They help the elderly, they help poor, they help people with ailments, shall we say. They help people that need all kinds of different services. I'll tell you more about the ones that I became a part of as we go along, but as I might say, all nonprofits are not created equal. As you can see here, and these are just a few, for goodness sakes, of the various types of nonprofit organizations. The churches and your political organizations, of course, lobby and activist groups, charitable funds and foundations, clubs, and even, of course, Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit and listed as such. Community sports groups and support groups are also nonprofit. Organizations serving the elderly, health organizations, and of course I mentioned disease-related research foundations. And there's a whole lot more to it than that, as far as the types of things that you can find within the community. Now, since they're not created equal, then it becomes important that you yourself decide what is of interest to you. What would make you feel right about participating with and being a part of. That's a personal decision, because this becomes very personal as you become involved. Do you or have you been a part of a nonprofit group? I'm going to kind of open it up a little bit here, and let's see if I've got everybody down here on the screen. I know that anybody that wants to volunteer any nonprofit they've been a part of and gets kind of just a brief overview, open your mic and jump in right now. Who's out there?
Okay, well, I'll do this. You know me, I'm the quiet one.
Go.
It's Mary.
Yeah.
So I was part of a nonprofit for a long time called the Hunger Fund, and it was an international nonprofit that really was trying to end hunger as we know it on the planet for all time. And it was really quite amazing to go to some of their meetings in New York and meet some of the people. You know, we don't always have an opportunity to really see hunger on a, you know, bright, loud, and in front of you. And so it's like a good idea. It's not like it kicks you in the gut and makes you just kind of want to go to the corner and throw up. And so, you know, I just learned so much and got such a better understanding of the true heroes in the world, who are the people who survive in those environments and can actually come up and thrive. It was astonishing. So that's just my experience of nonprofits. And when everybody else has had a chance to, yeah, I'd love to talk about something that Harry, sorry, not Harry, Mike and I have been kicking up, that kicking around and starting up, that I think will make a huge difference for nonprofits. But let me shut up now and give somebody else a chance.
Okay. Now that, Mary, that was a local organization, but international in scope. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. Anyone else that's had some experience with a local, or mainly a local type of nonprofit? Ray or Bob or Judith or anyone along the line?
Yeah, I can give a quick story here, Chris. So I reached out. Well, actually, they reached out to me a couple of months back, local nonprofit, for a messenger marketing based program. You know, I'm sure people are familiar with programs, particularly this time of year, where schools will do promotional things where they'll sell like discount coupons and so on, little discount cards. I'm sure a lot of people, anybody that's been around grade school or high school has probably seen some of these programs. This is sort of a digital version of that we are discussing and potentially going to roll out to a nonprofit on a kind of a regional scale, for lack of a better term.
Okay, and the purpose of that will be what? And is it for just one specific nonprofit?
This is for one specific nonprofit. They share a name with a bunch of other nonprofits. It's a police activities league. There's no trade secrets there. So they obviously do a lot of fundraising and do community activism and programs within their local community. So the purpose of the program is to create a recurring revenue stream, a recurring monthly revenue stream for them that they can then turn around and use in these community outreach and youth programs. That's generally what police activity leagues do. All the ones I'm familiar with anyway. Thing is, you roll out a program like this and it becomes successful, then, you know, all their neighbors kind of looking at what they're doing, and you can open some doors with that.
Sure, that's certainly a part of it. However, the main thing to understand, I think, in using or working with nonprofits is to get ingrained with one nonprofit that is recognized by the community for doing good work. This is it puts a little different slant to it, as opposed to putting a product into a nonprofit organization, because if you're actually treating them as a client, then the the feedback of the community will not be the same as if you were working with them on things that would help them grow without them being more of a client status. Does that make sense? I know that what you're going to do is going to help the group, but it's still a business and a client relationship. Am I right?
Yes, it is a business relationship. I think perhaps the label nonprofit group is a little bit misunderstood. That doesn't mean that they're not engaged in revenue streams. There's other nonprofits that I've engaged with over the years. Some of them have very big celebrity names behind them. They're most definitely engaged in revenue streams because they own significant enterprises, if you will. They just have a nonprofit status. It's not that they don't have money or they're poor by any stretch.
Right. Okay. All right. Understood. And that is a different category of nonprofit, or certainly not a charitable foundation or anything, but another category or level of nonprofit. As we go along here, think of the types of nonprofits in your community that you may have come across, may have heard of, and think how they fit into what we're going to be talking about here. So, of the nonprofits that would come to mind, and we haven't talked about it yet, so you need to pick one that you would be interested in. In other words, we're really talking about you becoming involved in the nonprofit, and as opposed to being brought into them with a program that will gain them money or something like that. You're really talking about working within that nonprofit. Now, that may include that on the outside, but that wouldn't be the only thing you would do. When you work with a nonprofit, good rule to work with one is which one needs your help the most. You see, that puts it in a different category there. Those that already have money, they don't really need your help. Well, they might, because you can increase the revenue stream, or you can maybe make them an extra $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000, which would be great, but they're not really the ones that need your help the most. Moving on here. What does it mean to get involved, or what does it take to get involved? Obviously, it takes your time. It takes your support of that organization. You have to also exercise your leadership abilities because they're in need of help in that regard. And of course, you're going to use your marketing skills because that will be the reason that you're a part of it. And good communications with them. Let me see if I can boil this down a little bit better. When Barbara was talking about being recognized and gaining credibility within the community, she put the nail right on the head there, so to speak. It means this. For example, one of the nonprofits I worked with was involved in breast cancer, and they started a breast cancer nonprofit that was pretty much part of a national program. I can't remember the name of the gal that's part of that, but its name is on it, really. But when that started, they came to me and said, we're just getting this running. We're planning a big event to raise some funds, and we need your help as far as getting things set up, which in this case included building them a website, providing graphics for some of their trifold brochures for the upcoming event, getting all kinds of things ready for what ended up being a dinner, if you will, with awards and silent auctions and that type of thing. But it also ended up being very successful. Now, the next year, of course, everything was in place. We already had things rolling. We rolled into the third year. Got even better. Every year, their fundraising grew. Now, Bob's mentioning, bringing in something else that would raise funds for them. Yeah, if that had been available at that time, possibly I would have come in and said, let's try this and see if it works for you. But by doing that, at their major events, they would bring in 500 to 600 people, because breast cancer is, people are very aware of it and want to support those that are involved in that. So it always had a large crowd, and every time that they had that particular silent auction and banquet or dinner, I was always able to actually get up and even speak, and was always recognized as the person that had helped them get to a certain point with their organization. Now, that shined a spotlight on my agency, and I did it not because I had to, but because I wanted to. It felt like the right thing to do, and I really appreciated what the nonprofit stood for. So that credibility increased, the visibility certainly increased, and this is early in my development of my agency. And these are things I needed to happen. I couldn't necessarily afford to give them a website, but I found a way to do it and built them a beautiful website. And we're talking about when you go to these nonprofits and do things for them, you're doing them for them. Understand that. You're not going to say, well, I'll give you a break on the price. No, that's not the way it works. If you're going to do their Facebook for them, you're going to do their Facebook for them. If you're going to do a website for them, you do a website for them. That is how you work with a nonprofit. Reduced prices are not the way to do it. Not if you want to accomplish what we're trying to here, which is become somebody who's known in the community for helping via nonprofits. So I'll tell you other stories here in a moment, because there are more as far as how it helped me grow my agency. So in this case, this is the ultimate meaning of find a need and fill it. Because you're volunteering to be an active member of a cause you believe in, and in the community, and which the community believes in as well. You want to look for areas they can use your marketing skills. And notice, as I just said, I have said nothing about this being a client. Two totally different categories here. Now, let me get some feedback. I know that probably some people say, well, gosh, I wouldn't think about giving my work away to anybody, much less a nonprofit or anybody else. But if you think about it, the rewards are 5 times what you're spending, or the time you're spending, or anything else. 5 times, I assure you, 5 times or more. So give me some feedback, positive or negative, I don't care. I'm just throwing some things out here, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody have anything they want to add while I'm going on here?
Well, I think part of the challenge, Christopher, is that not many of us are experienced in working with non-for-profits. And what you're exposing here, is certainly opening our eyes and potentially wanting us to get out there, find somebody who's in need of our services, and just, help them in any way we can. So I think the group is a little quiet because not many of us are doing it.
Okay, that's fine. So, who was that?
Rick.
Oh, yeah, I know Rick. I thought I heard somebody else in the background there. Okay. All right, well, I understand that. And some of these are certainly new ideas that you may or may not have thought about before while you've been growing an agency or working within your agency. But we also have to just answer the question, because you're always going to say, well, my gosh, first of all, I don't have enough money or time to do something like that. But it's take a lot of time? Yeah, no, it really doesn't. Because you're going to work these activities in with your other business activities. You're going to work these activities in with your chamber activities. And as Barbara stressed, every nonprofit or not-for-profit is in the Chamber of Commerce. And that is a huge advantage to you, so that you can make use of that relationship between the chamber and your inner workings with the chamber. Hey, your time, last statement there, but your time is to this charity is more valuable than you will ever imagine. So that being said, we got an open mic there. Who's enjoying that Slurpee there, guys? Okay. All right. What happens when you become part of a chamber, or excuse me, of a nonprofit, is that you have all kinds of people on a board of directors there. And those people are influential people in the community. Why? Because first of all, they want people that have some business experience, possibly. They also want people that have a network of friends that have a nice checkbook, because the board of directors is their key to raising funds in many cases. So the board of directors are influential business people throughout the community. And by working with the nonprofit, you're going to build some strong contact connections with the board of directors. As you do that, you'll see your visibility in the community come up. You'll see your credibility come up. And within a brief period of time, you're going to see referrals start to flow your direction. And that's referrals for all different kinds of things. When people know that you are working with, I'll use my example, breast cancer, they'll know about it. They'll hear about it. And before you know it, they will have a chance to meet you, know you, and ask for your help themselves with their business. I had many a chance, even at the breast cancer fundraising silent auction and dinner, I never walked away from any of those without at least 2 or 3 appointments. And to me, that was wonderful, because I had all the credibility I'd ever need. They didn't have any thoughts of looking for some other company to do their work. They knew they wanted me to do it. All they wanted to do is sit down and discuss what they needed to do. And those are the most beautiful types of conversations you could ever have with a potential client. Now, what do you think that does for your agency? I've just pretty much gone over that, haven't I? Because it will provide limitless opportunities. You'll be doing something for someone else that you might do anyway, but needed a good reason to get started. And isn't that true, though? You know, we sit around, we do our work, we're busy, we've got all these activities, we got people on the phone, we got this person we got to go see downtown. And amongst all those things are people who need your help in a different way. Like people of note, people of consequence, people of need, that you have the skills to make a huge difference for. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of enjoy going outside of the normal scope of doing business. And by that normal scope, I mean getting involved and being able to give of myself and to give value from myself to other types of organizations and people. To me, it just simply makes me feel great. That's all I can say. But as Rick said, you might have thought about it, but how in the world do you ever get started? What's going on there? Well, one way to get started is like we just talked to Barbara there. If I'd asked Barbara the names of the nonprofits in town, what they did, and kind of an overview, she could have told me everyone in that area. She wouldn't even stuttered. She'd been able to spit them out with no problem. So go talk to the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. Perfect source for your learning. Is there someone I would like to work with that I think I could do some good for, and at the same time, of course, do some good for myself. In the inside out area, anytime you're doing good for someone else and giving them what they need, you in turn will receive what you need. We see that happen over and over again. Another way to do it is I've suggested in some other videos to go set appointments with a number of the chamber board or past presidents or some of the influential people in the Chamber of Commerce. Set an appointment by simply saying, I'd like to drop by your office and just sit down and ask for your help and your advice, because I want to find out how I can best serve the community. Now, you've set 3 or 4 of those appointments. First of all, you've made a very, very strong connection with a business, the influential business person in the community. Second of all, you'll receive advice from all 4 of them, different advice from all 4 of them, but all important advice, not only about the chamber, because you would want to ask about how it could be the value to the Chamber of Commerce, but they're going to give you information on the charities in the areas, how they think what are the most effective chambers in the area, those that might need your type of help if it were offered. And so there are sources there. And so you're accomplishing 2 things. You're making a good, strong contact with an influential person in the community, and at the same time asking for their help and getting their advice. It's a no-lose situation. Now, when I set those appointments, I'd say, can I come by for 15 minutes? And I'll guarantee you I never got out under an hour, because they wanted to talk. All I did was listen. And you can watch for things that come up in the newspaper, community calendar, whatever, as far as what the various nonprofits are doing in the area at that time. But choose a nonprofit that means something to you. That's a big thing, because you are going to be spending some time. So just to go over maybe some quick stories. Of course, I've already told you a little bit about the breast cancer. But as I got involved doing this, and of course the community knew it, people in the chamber knew it, and the word spread a little bit. I had another nonprofit come to me. That particular nonprofit was one that took care of abused women. They had a safe house that was set up in the area, which after I started working with them for over 2 years, I didn't even know where the safe house was. So they took care of those women that needed their help very, very well. But they didn't have a lot of money. They were working off a shoestring for the most part. So my job was to go in and help them with their look, to give them an upscale look as far as their material was concerned. My job was to help them plan a fundraiser that would actually make them some money in the right kind of way, and to look for other things. I always was looking for something that might possibly help them. I remember also I did a video for them and put it on the CD so they could play it for people that they were trying to fundraise with or to get help from. So that was a very, very effective tool that we used there. There was also a third nonprofit that came to me. Right now, it escapes what it was. It really does, because it was the third one that came along. And I'll warn you, once you get into this and you become known for it, you'll also get bombarded a little bit too. There are a lot of nonprofits out there that need help. So you may say uncle within the first 2, and that's okay, because you've established a foundation. And I'll tell you how much it means. This is because it's me talking and I'm explaining some of the things that happened along the way with my agency and how it developed. That there was 1 year, because I had worked with the nonprofits and it was so widely known, that that particular year I was given the Volunteer of the Year award for the city, which was an extremely high honor. There's so many people doing so much good work in that town, and for me to receive the award was quite emotional for me. It certainly meant a lot. So those are the kind of things that come around to you, and you'll never cease to be amazed about what the benefits are for your agency and for yourself personally. So let's open the mics up a little bit. I've done all the talking here today. So let's open the mics up and see if we've got anybody that's got some other ideas. And I actually, Bob, in your particular case on raising money for the group there and being a client relationship, that's fine, but I don't believe it will give you the credibility that we're talking about here. I think that's the difference in the two. You might, if you were part of one and brought them the idea and you were working with them on other things, then yeah, probably so, be great. Or unless you actually brought them an idea more as a client base and then became involved more in the inner workings and other aspects of the things they need to grow their particular organization. But to me, it takes a special kind of organization, one that the community really has, it pulls the community's heartstrings, if you know what I mean. It is something that they know is important to people, that needs to be done for people. Oh yes, I do remember now. The third one was a group that took care of the elderly. They actually gave rides to their doctor's appointments and things of that nature. So it was an elderly care nonprofit. That was the third one that I'd forgotten about. So I served them as well. In fact, I even served them as a dispatcher. I took 2 hours once a week and dispatched drivers to go pick up various people at their homes. That was a lot of fun there, actually. Okay, again, I'm gonna kind of lay back here a minute, guys. Judith, you got anything you want to add in here, my dear?
I have been involved in several nonprofits. As most of you know, I tend to move around a lot. And when I move around to a new city, the first thing I do is go to the Board of Trade or not really the chambers because I wasn't familiar with them before. A Board of Trade, Chamber of Commerce, same sort of thing. In Vancouver it was for sure. And through them, I met an individual who was very much involved in with battered women, and I got involved with them. I started volunteering and helping in whatever way that I could. Within 2 weeks, I had been taken to dinner by the president of the Board of Trade and another organization, as well as courted by the hospital. Like all of a sudden it was like, wow, you're the new kid on the block and you have energy, and let's grab her before she gets wise to how this works. That's kind of the way I felt that it went. But within a couple of weeks, I could actually sort of choose that organization that tugged on my heartstrings the most, that I knew that I could summon up the energy for to go and help. And it was very worthwhile. It was very, very rewarding. And I've done that in many companies, many cities.
And you can imagine had you had the skills that you have now, that you probably would have done even more. I know that being a volunteer,
it would have been amazing. Yeah.
Being a volunteer only certainly is extremely laudable. But if you're able to go in and actually say, I can help you with this and this and this, and this is what I'll do for you. This is the value I'll provide. If you've been able to offer that to the battered women's organization, I'm sure that would have been value added to your agency, unlike anything else, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm not saying I went in empty-handed now, am I?
Okay. Very good, very good. There's always a back to what Judith is talking about. I know that. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to go back to Bob. Bob, I understand. I coiled kind of a difference between the two. How do you mesh those two together so it actually makes you visible within the community and raises your credibility? Besides just saying this guy can raise a lot of money, what that's also good, but kind of give me a feel for how you feel it works together. The concept that I'm throwing out and what you have going with the fire group association, because I'm interested in this. Release, Bob. Bob, are you there?
Yeah, you lost me, Chris. The fire organization.
No, you must not have been. You were getting a drink at the time. Okay. What I was saying was your concept with nonprofit you're working with, and the basis of the concept that I'm presenting here today are not totally in sync with each other. However, if you take the idea of just raising money for that organization, does that do as much to increase your credibility, visibility, and so forth in the community? But of course, you're in a different community. Everybody already knows you in your community, so I'm not sure anything would do much too much more for you. But is there a combination in there that's possible in your estimation? Can you bring both of those together?
Oh, sure. But I guess probably the best way to put it is I've taken a shortcut to get to the different means to get to the same endpoint. You can look at your contributions to nonprofits as purely philanthropic, and where you donate time or donate creatives or whatever you're doing. That's one method, but it still has to lead at some point to some type of revenue for them, because nonprofits just don't operate without revenue. Actually, if you're looking at nonprofits, you'd be kind of shocked how big they are. They're nonprofits make up 10% of the workforce in the United States. It's not a trivial thing, and most of these nonprofits don't, or yeah, I'd say that's a valid comment. Most of them do not run strictly on volunteers. So if you're trying to narrow the definition of discussion down to purely volunteer organizations, that's a different discussion. But there's definitely ways to meld the two. I just kind of taken a shortcut to fulfill their needs to right. Support their mission.
Yeah, but I understand, and probably in some ways I am talking more of a purely volunteer organization with maybe 2 or 3 people that are paid staff, that type of organization within the community structure. It's probably more of the style, I suppose. But yet, if I think about it, when I was doing the various things for the nonprofits that I participated with, virtually everything I was doing was helping them in one way or another to get toward raising money, or to help them in one step or another in the fundraising process. So you're right there. Even what I was doing, even though it's a different tack than you've taken, was fundraising related in one way or another, or awareness related too. I would have to say that awareness related. What does your particular nonprofit do with its money?
Bob? Are you talking to me, Chris?
Yeah. What does your nonprofit do with its money?
Well, police activities leagues, I believe that's a nationwide sort of concept. They're definitely common in California. They basically support, they do a lot of community activities, community support programs, particularly oriented towards youth. Some of the bigger ones in San Francisco Bay Area, they sponsor sports programs, after school programs and so on and so forth. Just the nature of, law enforcement, they're kind of, they're very active, particularly in underserved communities, poor neighborhoods, and so on. Again, trying to give people, it's a preemptive concept, if you will. So they're trying to give kids a better alternative than to getting in trouble, because
Okay.
they don't necessarily need the extra work, right?
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. All right. So it does have a good common cause going on there for sure. All right. All right. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add to the discussion today? Rick, anything else you want to kick in, my man?
Unfortunately, I've never worked with or for a nonprofit, so I have absolutely nothing to add, which is unusual for me.
Ray,
Well,
thank you. I appreciate it.
actually, thinking back, I actually did work for a nonprofit organization. I was a scout leader for the better part of 8 years. So I don't know if that falls under your non-for-profit organization, or is the Boy Scouts of America a profitable organization? I
Right.
don't know, but it helped many
That definitely
young,
qualifies, Rick.
okay,
Good stuff.
it helped many young boys develop values in life. And the comeback was probably, I'm going to say 20 years after I left the scouting in this arena. My son was a scout, also was an Eagle Scout. And we got the probably about 15 young boys, all at the same school, all friends. So they basically joined and they stayed together, because scouting wasn't the coolest thing in the world for boys. They went to school and they were, ridiculed. What are you doing in scouts? Why aren't you in sports? And so forth and so on. But about 3 years ago, one of my son's friends that I haven't seen in a very long time, he comes up to me and says, "Mr. Shera, I owe you where I am today based upon the skills that you trained me in scouting." I mean, that was amazing. And he's very high up in the ranks in the advertising industry, and I think he actually owns part of the advertising agency himself. So felt real good. Definitely a good feeling.
Makes all that time worthwhile, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I understand that for sure. Okay. Anyone else want to kick in some past experiences or stories that you'd like to tell? Okay. All right. Well, we will
Do churches count as nonprofits?
do what? Churches? Oh yeah. Yeah, they count. They count, yeah.
Well, I've done some work with my local church here, my Catholic church, fish fries during Lent, things like that.
Right. Okay. Hey, do you see any way that you can help them with your skills, so to speak, other than just your time?
Well, I actually had thought about this, like when I first joined Giveaway Masters. I was actually thinking about working through the churches or working with local churches, and I was thinking about giving them the review tool, the review platform for free, like we're doing with the chambers. But and that way they could start when they do these different things, like their Lenten fish fries or their summer bazaars and things like that, they can get reviews and things like that. But then I started thinking to myself, well, hell, I can't be giving this thing away to everybody. So I kind of put that on the back burner.
Understood. Yeah. But as we're into these types of groups, and you find one that you really feel strongly about, there will always be ways that will come to your attention that need things that need to be done and needs that need to be taken care of. So that will come almost naturally. Carl, you mentioned that you had been a part of a couple of nonprofits. You want to share some of that information with us, Carl?
Well, the first one that comes to my mind is the Police Explorer program, which is a spinoff of Boy Scouts of America. It started back in the late '60s. I think the first one came out of Los Angeles, and it's a group focused on law enforcement for teenagers that might have an interest in it, aging 14 to 21. And so now, 50 years later, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year with our local Police Explorer group. So I've been involved with them both as a member 50 years ago, as well as on the committee today. But more so, one of the things that I do on a regular contributing basis is with background checks for employers, they take a wide, there's a wide stance of the type of clients that you can have. You can have supermarkets, we have cleaning and restoration companies, but we also do churches, and churches are always in a crunch for two things. Number one, financial resources, and number two, human resources. Many times you'll have people that volunteer to do things on the church when they may not be the best fit for that position, and you have to limp along, so to speak, to work along with and accommodate that very nice thing that somebody else stepped up to help out. So I do background checks for some churches on a regular basis. In Ohio, I have a big client out there that we do background checks, and I do thousands of them for them. They've been with me for probably 15 years or more now. But on the other hand, I find myself working with a lot of those churches that are not necessarily my direct client, that call up and say, "Hi, I'm Susie Q. I'm new to the position, and I really don't understand a lot of things." And we end up having a basic core discussions about, I'll give you an example. Let's say that my church organization, United Church of Christ, we have a policy in place that's church-wide that has to do with safe church. And safe church ranges from a lot of things, making sure that you don't leave people alone one-on-one, to making sure that the alarm system doesn't fault out and burn down the church one day. Where I bring in my expertise in the background checks coupled with an insurance background is the discussions about some of their weaknesses that they may not be familiar about. For instance, if an insurance policy says there's a coverage for embezzlement, you actually have to go to your insurance agent and ask them, email or in writing otherwise, well, how do you define what a volunteer is? Is that an intern? Is that an unpaid employee? Because when it comes down to it, if there were to be an embezzlement and it was employee coverage, and then the insurance company goes, well, that was a volunteer that stole it, and we're not going to cover that $75,000 loss. Well, that is one hard thing to learn. So we ask the tough questions to educate them. And I find that I do have this on a regular ongoing business. I even put a newsletter out for not just my specific church system, but for other churches as well that want to talk about these basic exposures and recommendations, whether it comes from the IT, my friends that are in the IT field, my insurance friends that are in the business field of insurance. I'll give you an example. We did an audit in our church a year ago, and one of the things I would have never thought of was they audited the old music sheets in the choir section, and they came up with $90,000 worth of these old music sheets that were not a scheduled item, and therefore, had there been a loss, would not have been recovered.
So is this something you do on a regular basis for these organizations?
Yeah, and it goes on year round.
So you're tying your business to a nonprofit in a way that's certainly it's made you visible because people come to you. They've heard of you. They know you exist. So it's helped your business, I assume, right?
I know, and I'll tell you what, we get into some serious discussions when you have ministers that are going sideways on their finances, and you have a search committee that wants to find a great minister, but they think that they don't have any money to spend. I can tell you, if they've seen some of the horror stories, they'd find the money to spend, even though it's not that expensive.
Every nonprofit, I don't care if it's a church or who it is, has some bad experiences along the way. Thanks, Carl. I appreciate that. It tells me a lot about other aspects of what nonprofits run up against, and that's very important to us. We think more in terms of marketing, and Carl can enlighten us on so many aspects of the other side of the coin, so to speak. All right, we're coming up on our hour, or a little bit over, so I want to thank everyone for joining today and being a part of the nonprofit conversation. I think overall it's an important discussion to have for any marketing agency, any marketing person, to find a way to blend it in to your client activities, into your, and I encourage you, if you're not part of a chamber, I don't know what to say to you after being around me for so long, but it's important as far as your chamber activities as well. So thanks to everyone for being a part of this, and I'll hope to see you back here next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And just so you know, this Saturday, the podcast that Judith hosts, The Unintentional Heroes, Barbara Martinez, which you saw earlier today, will actually be the guest on her program. And so you'll get to hear her for an hour talking about her Chamber of Commerce, talking about Goshen, New York, and all of her things that she's doing to make it great. So don't miss that particular program, because it's all chamber related, every bit of it. And I'm sure it'll be exciting. So Judith, do a good job for us, all right? All right, so bye to everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.